Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. In today's lesson we are going to look at classification of plants, and this is lesson number 2. By the end of this lesson you must be able to classify plants according to morphology, life cycle, and habitat. So let's look at classification of plants according to morphology. First of all, we want to know what plant morphology is. Plant morphology is the study of the physical form and external structure of plants. And plant morphology is very useful in the identification and classification of plants. If you still remember in our previous lesson, when we were defining what plant taxonomy is, we looked at identification of plants as part of what the scientists do when they find new plants. So they identify these plants using their physical form and external structure. If plants are classified based on morphology, it means that the classification will be based on differences in the physical form and also external structure. Plants with the same physical form and external structure will constitute a class. So if plants have the same type of leaves, for example, if plants are broad-leaved, they will constitute a class. If plants are narrow-leaved, they will constitute a class. And under this classification, we have the following classes. Number 1, we have angiosperms. Angiosperms, which are seed-bearing vascular plants. So the common feature of the plants in this class is that they are seed-bearing and also they are vascular plants. They also have a common characteristic feature of producing flowers. Angiosperms are found almost everywhere and in every habitat. That is in forests, in grasslands, and they are the most common plants. Angiosperms display a huge variety of life forms, including trees, herbs, submerged aquatics, bulbs, and epiphytes. And the largest plant families are orchids, composite, and the legumes. Next, we want to look at gymnosperms. And gymnosperms, they are different from angiosperms because they don't produce flowers, and they produce cones and seeds. The term gymnosperm literally means naked seed, which means that the seeds that are produced, they are not enclosed within an ovary. The seed, it sits exposed on the surface of a leaf-like structure called a bract. And gymnosperms, they include conifers, geckos, etc. And some of the most common examples are woody plants such as pine trees. I believe we all know what the fruit or what the seed of a pine tree looks like. That is a very good example of a gymnosperm. Number 3, we have got vascular plants, and vascular plants, as the term says, these are plants with specialized vascular tissues, that is xylem and phloem vessels. And they use these vascular bundles or vascular tissues to move water up the plant so that photosynthesis may take place, and they also use the vascular bundles to move the products of photosynthesis. And the presence of these vascular bundles, they cause these plants to grow very large and very tall. Next, we've got non-vascular plants, and these plants, they are also called bryophytes, and they include most primitive forms of land vegetation. And as the term says, they lack vascular tissues for transporting water and nutrients, and that may cause them not to grow as big as vascular plants. And non-vascular plants, they do not produce flowers, fruits, or seeds. So that is the other common feature. Besides lacking vascular system, they also don't produce flowers, they also don't produce fruits, and also they don't produce seeds. They also lack true leaves, true roots, and stems. And excuse me. And the three main divisions of bryophytes are: we have mosses, we have leafworts, and we also have wormworts. Number 5, we've got woody plants. And these are plants that produce wood in their structural tissues, the type of wood that we see in trees and shrubs. They develop secondary stem tissue and a considerable xylem. They can either be shrubs or lianas, or they can also be trees. They can be grouped as deciduous or evergreen. Next, we have herbaceous plants. And herbaceous plants, they do not produce much wood, or they may not even produce wood at all, and they have got a green and soft stem. They grow very, very fast and produce flowers and many seeds, usually in a very short period of time. They have little or no secondary tissue. An example of such kind of crops, we have beans, we have peas, and we have also blackjack, which is a common weed. Number 7, we have broad-leaved plants. And broad-leaved plants, these are plants that have leaves that are very wide and flat or broad. And the surface is often marked with a network of veins, or they possess netted veins. The botanical characteristics, these botanical characteristics distinguish them from plants with needle-like shape, leaves, scale-like and blade-like leaves, and also narrow leaves. The distinction can allow us to classify them due to these morphological characteristics. So we have actually classified them as broad-leaved plants because they have got broad leaves. They've got broad leaves. So that is the main distinguishing feature that enabled scientists to classify them into broad-leaved plants. Next, we have narrow-leaved plants. As the name says, these plants, they have narrow leaves. And such leaves, they grow on common plants such as maize and wheat. And also lilies and onions, they also possess narrow leaves. Number 9, we have plants with needle-shaped leaves. And leaves of this kind of plants, they actually resemble a sewing needle, and the leaves grow on on plants such as pines. If you can take a look at what the leaf of a pine tree looks like, it is a very good example of a narrow shaped leaf. Of a needle shaped leaf. Next we have dicotyledonous plants, and from our O level and even ZJC, I think we are all aware of what a dicotyledonous plant is. Just as a reminder, a dicotyledonous plant is any member of the flowering plant or angiosperm that has a pair of leaves or cotyledons in the embryo of a seed. And we've got common examples such as groundnuts, soybeans. Most common green plants, shrubs and trees, and broad-leaved flowering plants such as beans, peas, and cowpeas are all dicots. Number 11, we have monocotyledonous plants, and this again is not a new term to us. We are all aware of what monocotyledonous plants are. And again, as a reminder, monocotyledonous plants, these are angiosperms that bear flowers, and the embryo of these plants have only one cotyledon. So the seeds that are produced by these plants have only one cotyledon. And examples of monocotyledonous plants or monocots are wheat, rice, bamboo, onion, lilies, etc. Now we want to look next at classification according to life cycle, and first of all we are going to look at annual crops. And this is something that is not new again. I believe you are all aware of what an annual crop is. Annual crops, these are plants that complete their life cycle from germination to production of seed in a single season, and then they die. That is, they only need one growing season to germinate and to produce seed. And most field crops are considered to be annual. For example, we've got sorghum, we've got beans, sunflower, and many others. Next, we have biennial crops, and these are plants that complete their life cycle in 2 seasons. In the first season, there will be vegetative growth, and in the second season, they will then accumulate food reserves. And then later on, they give flowers and seeds. The crops of this category, they include onion, they include sweet clover, carrots, spinach, cabbage, and sugar beet. Number 3, we have got perennial crops, and these are crops that are grown in the soil or that grow in the soil for more than 2 years, which means they can actually persist for more than 2 years. In other words, their growth is actually indefinite. As long as the conditions for growth are suitable, they will keep on growing over a long period of time. They may produce seeds within a particular year or a particular season, or they may not even produce seeds at all. So perennial, especially small flowering plants, grow and bloom over spring and summer. They may or may not produce seed every year. They do not die after reproduction, that is, after producing flowers, they do not die, but continue to grow indefinitely from year to year. And examples are white clover, alfalfa, and many other plants. Next, we want to look at classification according to habitat. That is, we are classifying plants or crops basing on the suitable habitat that they can grow. So, plants in this class can either be terrestrial, that is, plants that grow on land, or aquatic, that is, water-loving plants. Aquatic plants, which are also called hydrophytes or hydrophytic plants, they are water-loving plants. And these plants, they are naturally adapted to growing in water or waterlogged soils. They may, they may grow entirely, that is, the whole plant will be fully submerged in water, or they may be floating on top of water, for example, water hyacinth, or their roots may be anchored to the ground in swamps. So you can see plants growing in swamps. Their roots will be in water, but the rest of the plant will be out. For example, rice. But we can have also plants that only require waterlogged soils, or a soil that is that is too damp for other crops. For example, we have yams. They are able to thrive with watery places as their natural habitat due to special morphological and anatomical modifications. So the anatomical and morphological modifications that they have enable them to survive in these watery or waterlogged soils, or in water where other crops cannot survive. And a very good example is rice, and also we have got yams. The next group of plants are terrestrial plants, and these are plants that grow on land. So these are also called land plants, and they grow on land with their roots in the soil and the rest of the plant above the soil. So their body parts are divided into two main groupings: the aerial part, which is the part that is outside the soil, and the underground parts, which include roots, rhizomes, tubers, bulbs, etc. Most farm crops belong to this classification, and they are further grouped into special classifications such as heliophytes, mesophytes, and many others. There are so many of them. So guys, thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel so that every time I post a video, you won't miss it. And if you've got anything to say concerning this lesson or other lessons, please write that in the comment section. And also, if you feel that you have benefited something from this lesson, please click on that like button. Thank you very much.